right, good afternoon. It is early October. I'm Tom Novak. This is your Adisseo Novak Weather 30-day outlook. Now, this is our last one for the season, and this, of course, is for the month of October. And we like to start off with what has happened, at least over the last 30 days. So this would be in September, and take a look at this. Kind of a broken record across the northern plains, much of the central plains, and even into the southern plains here. It was really dry from Texas on north through the Dakotas, and actually that was could probably extend even further north up here into southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba, up there in Canada. Meanwhile, good news out in the southwest. Some rain and moisture out there has been helping out the fire situations out there, but especially in the desert southwest, they've really needed rain here over the last 6 months, and they've been getting it. And then, of course, we've had the moisture across the eastern sections of the U.S. A lot of this is just recent with Hurricane Ian that hit the extreme southeastern sections of the U.S., especially Florida, really hard. But all in all, the heart of the U.S. and southern Canada has been dry. In fact, we can go to another map here. Kind of shows you the exact same thing. This is the percent of normal precipitation, and anywhere you see the dark reds and reds, that's well below normal for precipitation for the month of October. So there you go. It has been dry over the heart of the U.S., and unfortunately, I think that's going to continue here into October. These are the heights at 500 millibars, so at about 20 to 25,000 feet in our atmosphere. And areas in red are usually indicative of ridges in our atmosphere or expanding atmosphere, and blue and purple is a contracting atmosphere. Basically, red often means sunny and warm weather. And of course, the blue and purples means inclement weather and sometimes some unusually cool weather. Now look at what happens. This is currently now here in early October. Strong ridge over southern Canada and portions of the United States, while the eastern sections of the U.S., of course with Hurricane Ian, have inclement weather with a trough out there. Now as we go through time here, this is the European computer model guidance. This is kind of what's going to be happening, I think, through much of October now. This is through the first week or two of October. And look at this. Much of the eastern sections of the U.S. and eastern Canada are going to be under the influence of a trough, while a pretty large ridge builds out west. And you can kind of start to see the flow in our atmosphere is going to be something like this as we go through the month of October, which means cool conditions, I think, out east, and then warmer conditions out west. And it's not till the middle of October that you see at least a bit of a weather pattern change where we get a trough in the central U.S., but I don't think that's going to last for very long. We'll have to see. Here's the jet stream, the river at 30 to 35,000 feet, and we're going to be going through the first couple of weeks here now of October from the GFS, the American Computer Model Guidance. There it is. There's Hurricane Ian, by the way, sitting out over the eastern sections of the U.S., and it's just real slow to pull off. And again, I think this is going to be a trend here throughout much of October where we get this strong trough and digging area of low pressure here over the eastern sections of the U.S. Meanwhile, we get a ridge that tries to pump up over the western sections of North America. And as we get into the middle sections of October, as you saw on the 500 millibar heights, we do get a bit of a trough that comes into the central and northern U.S., but I think it's going to be short-lived as still more warm air and a trough builds over the western sections of the U.S. So to make a long story short, I think it's going to be warm for the western half of the country and cool out east. And I'll show you that here in just a little bit. These are what we call anomalies. These are temperature anomalies from the GFS computer model guidance. And here it is for at least to start off October. And there it is, warm in the west, real warm out west here, and then cool in the east. And then as we go through time here, watch what happens. This is now even into late October now. You can see the GFS computer model guidance does not change much. It still shows unusually warm air out in the western sections of North America. Meanwhile, much of the eastern third of the U.S. and eastern Canada stays cool. Now, when we look at the precipitation forecast through the month of October, these are anomalies again. This is Hurricane Ian here producing the copious amounts of rain over the mid-Atlantic. But watch what happens. Look at the dry air now over much of the U.S., indicative of the brown colors. And as we get into middle October now, and then now we get into late October, this trend just continues where much of the country, especially east of the Rocky Mountains, is going to be dry for the most part, at least below normal precipitation the way it appears. Meanwhile, if you're looking for rain, you're going to have to go down to Florida the way it appears, or maybe perhaps some return moisture here out in the desert southwest or western sections of the southern plains states. These are the predictions now here from Adisseo and Novak Weather. And here you go. These are temperatures over the next 30 days. Broken record here, but warm out west and cool out east as we get a jet stream that surges onto the western sections of North America and then dives south into the Great Lakes and southeastern sections of the U.S. This would promote cold fronts to move out of eastern and central Canada and move south into the eastern U.S. Hence the reason why I'm thinking temperatures are going to be below normal over at least the eastern third of the United States and portions of eastern Canada. Meanwhile, with that dry, and this is usually a dry north to northwest flow when it comes out of Canada, I'm expecting quite a bit of dry air to come out of Canada and then surge south and east into much of the United States from the central sections of the U.S. on east towards the east coast. And as mentioned, with the trough out east, we're likely going to get some rain in Florida and perhaps hugging the eastern Atlantic coast of the U.S., and then we're hoping for still more return moisture out west. Hey, your drought index map, before we let you go here, this just shows you who is in some trouble, at least as far as drought is concerned, and this is not a surprise. From the Dakotas and southern Canada on south to Texas, it is still unusually dry. In fact, there's an extreme and exceptional drought in some portions of the central and southern plains, and I don't expect that to change much here in October. Meanwhile, where it's been wet over much of the eastern half of the country. Dry air should help areas in the Corn Belt, especially the eastern Corn Belt on towards Appalachians, to dry out. And as mentioned, I'm only expecting decent amounts of rains over the extreme eastern sections or the Atlantic coastal regions of the U.S. And then, yes, some return moisture. And this actually would be Pacific moisture would come into the desert southwest, giving them even more rain. And their drought conditions have actually been easing quite a bit as you get into Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. So that's great news there. And we're hoping that that'll extend east into portions of Texas as we go through month of October. All right, that's your 30-day outlook from Adisseo. Novak Weather, thanks for joining me. Take care and have a good winter.